What's going on? It's your girl Rainy, and today I am in teacher mode. Do you like my glasses? Yes, I do wear readers when I am reading nearby. And today I am going to be teaching from a course, and it's going to be really, really good because I'm going to give you some life examples about the difference between being reactive and proactive, how to focus on the things that you can control, as well as demonstrating and practicing proactive behavior so you don't get yourself in trouble all the time, either with the things that you say or the things that you do. So let's jump right into it. So what reactive behavior looks like is there's a trigger, there's an event, there's something that sort of happens and you instantly respond. Right? You don't give yourself time to stop and think about what is the best response in that specific instance. Reactive behavior looks like, in terms of our languaging, we may say things that either we don't mean, we may put the blame on other people and start saying things like, you make me so angry, you make me so mad. Or a lot of times we say things that we don't mean because we're angry. And we know that sometimes, especially if you are gifted in speech like I am, sometimes we say things and you can't unsay it, right? It's been said. So we want to avoid being reactive. The difference between being reactive and proactive is that proactive people, the same thing happens. There's a trigger, there's an event, something happens. They stop, they pause, and they think about what is the best response based on this instance and based on the circumstance. And so proactivity looks like and has the sort of the disposition of, I am responsible for my choices. So instead of me being knee-jerky and instantly responding or saying things or doing things, I'm going to stop, because at the end of the day, I know that I'm actually responsible for my choices. And that's sort of the disposition that a proactive person has. In terms of how that shakes out in real life, the person says, I choose not to react. Choose not to react right now. I'm going to pause. I'm going to put myself in timeout before I do something or say something that I can't take back. And typically, not all the time, but typically there's a better outcome because you gave yourself some space to collect your thoughts and choose the right response. Proactive behavior looks like remaining calm, focusing on solutions, taking responsibility, taking the initiative to make things happen in the aim of resolution. It looks like thinking before acting. Proactive languaging looks like practicing. I heard this term today from a colleague that said, he used the term practicing social humility. I thought, ooh, I love that, because it's practicing empathic behavior and sometimes even saying, I'm sorry, even though we might not have been the person to have caused the instance. It looks like looking at all of our options. And it looks like saying, I choose, I can. There's got to be a better way to resolution. So that's the difference between reactive behavior and languaging and proactive language and behavioring. You know, I'm going to give you an example that I used to practice all the time when I had a corporate job. And I was working for a company that was going through a reorg, and it was some tough times. I mean, there was some tough meetings. And when you know yourself, and we talk a lot about this on my channel, is spending time with yourself, getting to know yourself, getting to know who you are. And then oftentimes we get feedback from people, from trusted people in our lives. You take all that, you put it together, and you know how you're going to show up in some of these spaces. So I'd be showing up in these meetings, and some of the things that these people would be saying were basically full on BS and lies. It didn't make any sense. And so the old Rainey, right, the 20-year-old Rainey, would literally have outbursted something like, this doesn't sound right, or gone into this Q&A with the folks, right, asking them questions and maybe being a little just kind of getting in there, right, and getting in their face, right. The new Rainey shows up differently. So I want to give you a real life example of just a way that I practice this, even up to this moment in real life. In terms of, there's the trigger or event, and then there's the response, but I take time out to really try to choose my responses. Do I do this in every area of my life? No. I am on a journey of betterment like you. But when it comes to corporate spaces, being in corporate meetings, I've pretty much got a good grasp on this and have some strategies I wanted to share. So I remember working for a company, and we were going through a reorganization, and we'd be in these town hall meetings, and the leaders would be saying the craziest things, and then that made no sense or weren't true or were very nebulous, or being in divisional or department smaller meetings, and people also sort of reinforcing maybe what was said in those town hall meetings, and it still didn't make any sense. And there wasn't time for questions. And quite frankly, they didn't even want you to ask questions, to be honest with you. So what I developed was a way to, before responding or saying something or doing something, I learned a few strategies, right? So as someone is saying something that's really far out, like, yeah, we don't know if there's going to be layoffs, even though that I know that there are going to be layoffs. I might be I usually bring water to those meetings, so I'd be drinking water. So as the person's talking about layoffs, I'd be like, because my tendency is to facially show up in a way that says, I don't believe anything you're saying, and you're talking a bunch of caca, right? So I would bring water, and I'd make sure that my eyes were looking at my water, instead of rolling my eye or like, oh God, these people are crazy, right? I'm so good at that, right? But I know how I show up because I've gotten feedback about that, and I also know myself, right? Another thing I would do when appropriate is I would bring gum. So especially when I'm asked questions, because sometimes they'll go, oh, what do you think, Rainey? And, I usually had, a piece of gum. And so while they're talking, I'm like, but I'm not really nodding my head, because my personality, and I don't know if you're like me, I can't agree if I don't really agree. And I don't know that that's a good thing, by the way. But what I'm trying to do is to share with you ways for you to give yourself time before your response. So these were things that I did before I responded, or I either chose not to respond, right? So one was I brought water to meetings, bottled water to meetings, to kind of make sure I shut my mouth, keep my eyes focused on my water, and just take sips along the way. Another was that I chewed gum. The last thing that I did when I was asked, and I really couldn't fake it, like I really couldn't fake like agreeing with them, I chose words that really were placeholders so that I could get myself together. So these are some of the words that I said, right? So if someone's like, oh, Rainey, what do you think about that town hall? Don't you think it was great? It was wonderful. I go, wow, that was really interesting. Or if someone says, hey, Rainey, I really think that everything that's going on now is truly amazing. What do you think? That's really, really amazing. I want to take some time to think about that. Or someone says, tell me your thoughts. I really want to know what you're thinking. You're a person that we really value your opinion. I really think that that's interesting. And I'm going to need a little bit more time to process what all was said in that meeting. And so I am not saying anything. I am not being negative. I am not being positive. I am finding ways and placeholders to save myself from saying something and being reactive, which I know is going to have a negative outcome. So we talked about reactive languaging, reactive behavior, proactive behavior, proactive languaging. And the last thing that I want to leave you with as it relates to ways on stop being so reactive is to think about what you actually can control, right? A lot of times there are places that we find ourselves and we're trying to resolve the issue. We may not have the authority, the credentials, the swagger, the influence, the know-how to resolve such said issue. And so when that's the case, and when you might have shared a little bit about how you think you could help or how you think maybe your advice would be beneficial, if you don't have influence in that area, let it go. Focus on areas that you can control. So if you have a team, for example, and the whole organization is maybe going through upheaval, the only thing that you can do is control how you show up, the things that you do and say to influence your immediate team members. When you think about your family, maybe there's some dissonance within your family and there's some family infighting. The only thing that you can do is control you and how you show up in those family settings. Maybe in a relationship that you have right now, there's a little bit of rub, right? And maybe you're not getting along. Maybe you're not agreeing on things right now. The only thing that you can do is choose how you choose to show up in those spaces. So this applies to you, right? Let's say you had a really tough day at work. You don't want to come home and dump all that stuff on your family. You know, your kids have nothing to do with what happened at work. Your spouse has nothing to do with that. Schedule in some time to get some downtime, to come down, right, and reset. Right? Our lives are like driving Corvettes or fast cars, right? They're many different gears. And so, you know, you might have been in gear 5 all day long at your job, but when you come home, your children want you in gear 1. They just want to love on you and hug on you, or your partner just wants to love on you and hug on you. Allow them that, but you may not be ready for that if you haven't had a chance to kind of bring yourself back and to reset. I remember in one relationship I was in, I had a partner who I lived with who was, well, that person worked third shift and I worked first shift. So we only had a small window of time where we could actually be together, right? So that's let me set the stage for that. So, you know, needless to say, when I came home from my 9 to 5, he was kind of ready to go. And he's like, oh my God, I want to tell you about all these things and da da da. And one day I said, babe, would you allow me, you know, a half an hour to just kind of go in the bathroom, change my clothes? Like, I just need to chill. I had to communicate. That's what proactivity looks like. It doesn't, you know, sit in the background and complain and go, God, I wish he would shut up, or I wish he would leave me alone, or I wish these children would just go away, or I wish they would just go watch a movie. No, you ask, you give yourself the dignity, the respect, you give the other people around you who care the respect of communicating and saying, hey, I just need kind of a minute. Would you allow me that? I'm going to take a walk around the block, babe. Or, you know, and you heard this in my other videos when it comes to children, especially if you've trained your child to be in timeout as one of your disciplinary strategies, that microwave timer is a godsend. Mommy needs timeout, and you set it to 10 minutes, and you do what you got to do, and then they know for 10 minutes. Don't say nothing to me for 10 minutes or whatever the time is. You're in timeout because you know that these relationships are valuable, and you don't want to destroy them because you were being reactive. Being reactive is so energy draining. It is so unfulfilling. And oftentimes we say and do things that we really had no control over anyway. So I just wanted to share that with you. We're going to talk a little bit more about these concepts. We're going to tie it into time management, and we're going to tie them into how to be proactive with your time, and tie it back to what we started to talk about at the beginning of the year, which is how to make this the best year ever. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Share it, like it, love it. Subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot going on. God bless, and I'll see you the next time.